Well, yes, Lord.
Folks, you don't understand what this is going to do to Islam. The majority of Muslims don't know this, and they'll be shocked to hear this, and they'll say you're lying. They don't know this. They'll be shocked. Now here, a leading Islamic scholar, Islamicist, he's not Muslim, but he's a leading authority on Islam, Fred McGraw-Donner. Notice what he says. At the center of the town was the shrine called the Kaaba, a large cubical building with a sacred black stone affixed in one corner. That was the sanctuary to the pagan god Hubal. What are some of the pagan practices that Muhammad adopted? This is Karen Armstrong. They would kiss the black stone embedded in the wall of the Kaaba, which was probably a meteorite that had once hurled to the ground. Oh, so wait, the pagans before Muhammad used to kiss the black stone and Muhammad adopted it? Now we know why the pagans did it. Why is Muhammad doing it? Then she says in that same source, officially, the shrine was dedicated to Hubal, an Nabatean deity, and there was 360 idols arranged around the Kaaba, probably representing the days of the year. Okay, Karen Armstrong, you are not hostile to Islam. You're very friendly to Islam, and you bend over backwards to appease Muslims. And Muslims even invite you to lecture in their meetings, and they praise your books. And you admit that the shrine was officially dedicated to Hubal? Then who is Allah? If the Kaaba is the shrine of Allah, but it's the shrine of Hubal, and you can't have a shrine for more than one God. Here, connect the dots, the necessary logical inference and conclusion, Allah was the name of Hubal, Hubal was the name of Allah. How do you get around it? And even here, F.E. Peters, in his book, Hajj, he says the same thing, F.E. Peters. This Muslim historian says, Amr ibn Luhay, pay attention, where does this come from? Amr ibn Luhay brought with him to Mecca an idol called Hubal from the land of Hit in Mesopotamia. Hubal was one of the Quraysh's greatest idols, so he set it up at the well inside the Kaaba and ordered the people to worship it. Thus, a man coming back from a journey would visit it and circumambulate the house before going to his family and would shave his hair before it, all of which Muslims do. Circumambulate the Kaaba and shave their heads. Here, the source is saying the pagans were doing that before Muhammad. Folks, is it sinking in? Are you getting it? Now, are you ready for the shocker? You thought this blew you away. Did you know that the Muslim scholars till this day have no idea what the Arabic word samad means? That's chapter 112, verse 2 of the Quran. If you read it in Arabic, it says, Allahu samad. Allahu samad. What does samad mean? They have no idea. Samad. Now, here's where you're going to get shocked. If Hubal was actually Baal, pay attention. Hubal was actually Baal, and the Arab pagans knew that was Baal. But in time, the connection became lost and marred by Muslims, by Muhammad and his followers, because they didn't want Allah to be identified with Baal. Then it shouldn't surprise us that certain words connected with Baal worship, their meanings became marred and confused and lost as time went on, as Allah was disassociated with Baal. If Hubal was Baal, and the evidence shows he was, but then in time, Muhammad and his followers tried to disassociate Allah from Hubal so that the connection became lost, then it shouldn't surprise us that words associated with Hubal, with Baal, that were then taken over by Muslims in reference to Allah, their meanings would be lost too. But if you go back in history and see the connection of these words with Baal, then it would make sense. Guess what, folks? We found an inscription, a Ugaritic inscription with the phrase Baal Samad. Baal Samad, Lord of Samad. And Samad meant club. The Lord of the club, because Baal was depicted with a club in his hand. Here it is. This comes from Franz Rosenthal. Franz Rosenthal, a scholar of Islam. And he's talking about the Muslims being confused over the word Samad. And now he explains why they may have been confused. Let me read. There is enough room for suspicion to permit us having a look at some outside evidence. There we encounter a noteworthy phenomenon, the not infrequent religious connotation of the root Samad. In Ugaritic, that's a place in Canaan, Canaanite worship. Samad appears as a stick or club that is wielded by Baal. In the Kilamu inscription, line 15, we find Baal Samad, apparently Baal as the owner of his divine club. In the Bible, the adherence of the Israelites to Baal of Peor is expressed by the Nepal of the root Samad. So even the word Samad appears in the Hebrew Bible in reference to Baal, even in the Old Testament. The verb that is translated by the Septuagint, hetalusi, the use of the verb doubtlessly reflects North Canaanite religious terminology. From Arabic sources, we learn that an idol of Ad was allegedly called Samud, which brings us rather close to the environment of Muhammad. Now watch this. In view of this material, the suggestion may be made that as-Samad in the Quran is a survival of an ancient northwest Semitic religious term, which may no longer have been understood by Muhammad himself or by the old poets. Did you catch it? Such hesitation is what we'd expect if we are dealing with a pagan survival from the early period of revelation. Wow. Did you catch it? We now have archaeological evidence showing Samad was associated with Baal. Baal Samad, the lord of the club, because Baal was depicted with a club. So Hubal comes from Syria, maybe Jordan, an idol of the Moabites, and the Moabites worship Baal. Hubal then comes to Mecca. He becomes the chief god of Mecca, of the Kaaba. So that means Hubal would be the Arabic form of Baal, either Ha-Baal or Hu-Baal, he is Baal. And then Samad would have been associated with Baal, but when the Muslims purified Allah from his connection to Baal, they kept Samad but did not realize its pagan root and origin and implication. You with me there? Okay. Now, let me read Ibn Kathir. The third line of evidence. Who's ready? From Ibn Kathir, one of the greatest Muslim scholars, commentators that ever lived. This is in my article. This comes from the English translation of Al-Sirah al-Nabawiyya, the biography of Muhammad, the Prophet, by Ibn Kathir. Volume 1, pages 125, 126. Volume 1. Guys, pay attention. Ibn Ishaq stated, it is claimed that when Abdul Muttalib, received such opposition from Quraysh over the digging of Zamzam, he vowed that if 10 sons were born to him, who grew up and protected him, he would sacrifice one of them for God at the Kaaba, Allah at the Kaaba. So notice his vow. If I have 10 sons, I will sacrifice one of them for God at Kaaba. Do you remember what the person said earlier? Oh yeah, but Baal demanded human sacrifice. Did you catch what Abdul Muttalib vowed? To sacrifice one of his sons. Oh yeah, but Baal demanded human sacrifice. Did you just catch it? Abdul Muttalib promised that if Allah gave him 10 sons, he would sacrifice one of his sons, a human sacrifice to Allah. Baal demanded human sacrifice. Allah demands human sacrifice. Someone's saying, oh yeah, but and then I said, what do you think jihad is if it's not human sacrifice? Okay, so now notice, Abdul Muttalib promised, if you give me 10 sons, I will sacrifice, kill one of them to you. Okay, now watch here. Let's see who's going to see this, who's going to make the connection. Eventually, he had 10 sons grown up, whom he knew would give him protection. Their names were Al-Harith, Al-Zubair, Hajl, Dirar, Al-Muqawwim, Abu Lahib, Al-Abbas, Hamza, Abu Talib, and Abdullah. He assembled them. Let's see who's going to catch this. He assembled them and told them of his vow and asked them to honor his pledge to God Almighty, Allah Azwajal, and all glorious is He. This is in Arabic, it's Allah. God in English, but Arabic, Allah. So he vowed to Allah. Okay. They obeyed and asked him what he wanted them to do. He asked each of them to take an arrow, write his name on it, and return to him. Now watch this. Remember, he's going to go to Allah and sacrifice. Allah. They did so and went with him inside the Kaaba to the site of their god Hubal, where there was the well in which offerings to the Kaaba would be placed. There, near Hubal, were 7 arrows which they would use for divining a judgment over some matter of consequence, a question of blood money, kinship, or the like. They would come to Hubal to seek a resolution, accepting whatever they were ordered to do or to refrain from. Guys, can you help me understand? He made the vow to Allah. Why is he going to the idol Hubal? And why did Ibn Kathir say this was their god Hubal? And why is he asking Hubal whether he can get out of sacrificing one of his sons? If you made the vow to Allah, why are you going to the idol Hubal? And why did Ibn Kathir say that's your God? The God of Muhammad's family, the God of his grandfather, and his father was Hubal. Okay. Now the tradition goes on to say, oops, sorry, before it dies out. Okay, this is my article. It goes on to say that the lot fell on Abdullah, Muhammad's father. So Hubal wanted Abdullah to be killed, right? But then the Quraysh say, no, don't kill him. Make a deal with your God to see if he'll take camels in place, sacrifice camels in his place. Now watch here. Pages 126, 127. It's lengthy, but I think it's worth me reading, and we're done. So they left for Medina, where they found the diviner whose name was Sajah. So they went to a witch. To ask the witch, how can we appease Allah? How can I appease Allah so I don't kill Abdullah? Why would you go to a witch, a soothsayer, to tell you how to appease Allah? Are you catching this? I don't know if it's sinking in. What kind of God is Allah that would allow Abdul Muttalib to go to a soothsayer, a witch, a kahina, one who contacts spirits, to tell him how to appease Allah? And this is Ibn Kathir, one of the greatest Muslim scholars, saying this. Okay. So they left for Medina, where they found the diviner whose name was Sajah, as Yunus bin Bukayr reported from Ibn Ishaq, that was at Khaybar. They rode off again and went to her and sought her advice. Abdul Muttalib telling her of the whole problem regarding him and his son. She told him, leave me today until my attendant spirit comes and I can ask him. Wow. So not only do you go to a witch, a soothsayer, she says, wait, my spirit will show up. In other words, a demon, a Satan. And that demon and Satan will tell you how to ransom your son Abdullah. And Allah is going to accept it. Allah is going to accept it, folks. Allah is going to allow Abdul Muttalib to go to a witch, a soothsayer, and allow an evil spirit, a demon, a spirit, to tell her how to appease Allah, and Allah is going to be okay with it. Now, what would the true God, Jehovah do if an Israelite went looking for a witch and took the advice of the spirit that inspired that witch to appease Jehovah? What would God do, the true God do? Okay, now watch. Let's keep going. They left her, and Abdul Muttalib prayed to Allah. So he's praying to Allah. Next day, they went back to her, and she informed them that she had a message. How much is the blood money you prescribe? She asked, 10 camels. Okay, and then they says, okay, go back and present your man as an offering and do the same with 10 camels. Then cast arrows to decide between him and them. If the divining arrows point to him, then add to the number of camels until your God is satisfied. Keep doing this deafening of arrows until it points to the camels, not your son. Okay? And once it points to the camels, then you know that's how many camels you sacrifice to ransom your son Abdullah from being murdered. If it points to the camels, then sacrifice them in his place. That way you will please your God and save your man. Please your God and save your man. So they went back to Mecca. When they had agreed to do so, as she had said, Abdul Muttalib said prayers to God, Allah. Then they offered up Abdullah and the 10 camels as sacrifice and cast the arrow. At that point, the men of Quraysh told Abdul Muttalib, who was standing near Hubal, praying to Allah. Hubal praying to Allah. It's all over. Your God is pleased, O Abdul Muttalib. Wait, earlier it says their God was Hubal, and it says as he's praying to Allah, he's before the statue Hubal. There you go. Ibn Kathir, pages 126, 127. Here. At this point, the men of Quraysh told Abdul Muttalib, who was standing near Hubal, praying to Allah. Arabic is Allah, a God. It's all over. Your God is pleased, O Abdul Muttalib. But wait, who's his God? Is it Allah or Hubal? Because earlier, Ibn Kathir told us this. Look what he told us, Ibn Kathir. They did so and went with them inside the Kaaba to the site of their god Hubal. Hold on. Abdul Muttalib prays to Allah by standing in front of the idol Hubal. Hubal is said to be his god and the god of his family. But then the Quraysh said, it's all over. Your God is pleased, O Abdul Muttalib. So I'm really confused. If his God is Hubal and he's praying to Allah, but he's shuffling arrows to the statue Hubal and he's before the statue Hubal praying to Allah, are you trying to convince me that Hubal is not Allah, Allah is not Hubal? Can you help me understand now? Why does Allah accept Abdul Muttalib going to a soothsayer witch? And why does Allah accept a demon telling that witch soothsayer how to appease Allah? And why is Abdul Muttalib going before the statue Hubal and shuffling arrows and praying to Allah at the statue of Hubal? And if Allah is his God, why did Ibn Kathir say Hubal is his God? What's going on here? What's the conclusion? What's the conclusion, folks? Who is Allah truly? He is Baal, and Baal is another name of Satan. What more proof do you guys need from the Muslim sources when you combine them together that Islam is nothing more than Baal worship repackaged by Satan through his man Muhammad in order to entice the people of God today away from the worship of Jehovah like Baal did during the Old Testament period? How many of you are overwhelmed and shocked by the evidence? And how many of you are now convinced Islam is nothing more than Baal worship repackaged by Satan? How many of you were not aware how much evidence there was to show that Allah is Baal and therefore Satan? Because Baal or Baal is the name of Satan.
Well, yes, Lord.